me in the long run. So moving on to Tesla, the Tesla part. I mean, the stock price has sort of really been on a tear. I mean, minus today, the whole market's really crapping out. But other than that, I mean, relatively speaking, it's still holding itself. It's only not even down 2%. In the past, if NASDAQ was down 3%, Tesla would be down 5% or 10% sometimes. So
Yeah.
the fact that Tesla's only down 1.5 or 2% when the NASDAQ's down 3%, that's really strong in my view. It's a bullish.
It was green for a little bit today, and especially when you consider how high it is right now compared to where it had been this time last week or even late last week. It's still up significantly. So shedding part of yesterday's gains is not the end of the world by any stretch when we're right around 778. So yeah, it's are you surprised at all? Because I think we've been talking for a couple weeks now about the potential of catalysts incoming. So were you surprised to see how quickly it showed up?
I'm not so surprised. I'm happy. I'm always optimistic or biased in how optimistic I feel the Tesla stock price is going to go when there's upcoming catalysts and such. And there's a lot of anticipation in the stock price ahead of these catalysts. I find, whether it's Battery Day or some Cybertruck unveiling or whatever, it seems like the stock a lot of times, starts trending upwards ahead of the event. And then like the few days of the event, it kind of starts crashing. And the day after the event, it crashes like 20% or 10%, and so I hope that's not the case here. And I hope that like when there's the delivery, I think a lot of it's based on all these delivery metrics that everyone's raising the last week or two, that now a lot of Wall Street analysts are thinking 230,000 plus deliveries. So for the quarter. So hopefully next, over the weekend when they announce whether it's 230 or 240,000, when they announce it, it's not going to, be a sell on the news type event where it's like buying the rumor, which is kind of right now, and then sell on the news, so that could happen. Seems to be the pattern, but hopefully it's not more of like a 5%, more than a 5% drop in my mind, maybe a 2% drop if we're lucky or something. I don't know. That's my guess on the immediate stock price behavior. What do you think about the immediate kind of stock price movements?
Yeah, I guess similar to you, I'm not entirely surprised. We've been talking about some of these catalysts. The beat on deliveries, which we've been expecting. Q3 earnings. I think analysts are starting to kind of wake up that their numbers are too low, both for Q3, but also for Q4 in particular 2022. So we saw Piper Sandler's big revision upward today. So I think we'll see more of those coming in the future, and it's always hard to say. I mean, I don't really generally like trying to trade around earnings, because even if they, like we saw in Q2, there was a huge beat on earnings, like a massive beat, even like way better than any aggressive bull was expecting. And then the stock was, I forget if it was actually down or just flat, but
it was like flat to down a little bit. It didn't go up. Yeah.
So, I think there's, I do think it was reasonable that the stock should kind of recover to where it is, or potentially even a bit better. But I think the bigger catalyst is going to be, in the next couple months, how, the beta program rolls out. Because there's a lot of kind of FUD circulating right now. I'm not sure if you've seen some of the articles that have gone around of like, oh, this reckless safety program that Tesla is, foisting upon unsuspecting victims of the public roads.
There's so many crashes, yet there's been 0 crashes with 2,000 beta testers for a full year already. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, the statistics on safety don't seem to matter. It's just the fact that, oh, look, that car was going to turn into that pedestrian, and it would have done it without the the unpaid safety driver. That's just a Tesla fanboy. So like there's this very strange narrative going on with the whole full self-driving program that I think it's really nonsensical in many ways, because people are just having emotional responses to it. They're not looking at the data. They're not looking at the bigger picture of how many accidents has it avoided. They're just saying it made a mistake. Look, we know it made a mistake. And Tesla's forcing the beta testers to sign an NDA, so they must be up to no good. It's just, I don't know, it's just kind of sad. But I think if that goes well, and if we see the pace of improvement on the beta really accelerate, as I think it should, then I think that could be another positive catalyst for the stock as well.
Yeah, I mean, when they released it, I think Friday night or whatnot, there was this this Twitter handle that started getting a lot of notoriety, and I kind of played into it, I guess too. Is this guy Armin the Hacker, and he claimed to be an autopilot engineer on his Twitter profile, even, and he was talking and answering people's questions, and I just assumed like, hey. I saw someone else kind of retweet him as like an employee of Tesla. So I was like, oh, cool. And I was reading his tweets. I was like, this guy seems to know a lot. And it said autopilot engineer. And he was answering people's questions, and I just assumed it was like Elon, like finally giving like someone in his team like the authority to answer questions for him. You know, like, hey, Amin, why don't you just answer the questions? I trust you, or something. You know, that's kind of what I assumed. And so I like retweeted it initially and was like, hey, everyone, this guy's giving us some interesting info about the Tesla autopilot. And the guy went on and answered so many questions, like in depth, like beyond like what almost anyone we follow, you know, we think we'd be able to answer about details of how full self-driving is working and such. But then a couple of people the next morning, I woke up and a couple of people, you know, that was like before I went to bed, an hour or two before I went to bed. And then I went to bed and I woke up the next morning and I guess overnight I'd gotten a couple messages saying like, hey, this guy might not be legit. Look at this or that. And I was like, oh, wow. And if you look at his tweet history from like a year ago or something, you know, it shows that he doesn't work for Tesla. And he's like he's like a fanboy trying to get an invite to an event or whatnot. And so then I thought like, well, this guy's either like really faking it, or he's just like some recently hired Tesla employee that was like went up the totem scale fast, or he's like a disgruntled employee that just kind of went AWOL and or recently hired as well. Kind of went AWOL and disgruntled and just on his own doing stuff, you know, and so I wasn't sure which one of those it was, but I just like retweeted like, hey, everyone be careful what this guy's saying. And eventually by the end of the weekend, his Twitter handle was deleted completely. And some people said that that guy was a fake. He wasn't real. But it was very odd, like how much he seemed to know.
And he was right on some stuff, like the fact that the full stack was not going to be released. Like people were not expecting that when he tweeted that out. So there's maybe he was just right by chance, but also maybe he actually was who he said he was. So I'm kind of hoping he didn't lose his job. For tweeting some of the stuff. If he was legit,
if he said he was, he would have had to have been hired in the last like 6 months or a year, because tweets even like 6 months back or something were implying that he didn't work for Tesla. He was just trying to like, be a part of the, he didn't, he had some tweets like 6 months or a year, or less than a year ago, that obviously he didn't work at Tesla. So he would have been a recent hire, which is possible, but a little harder to. I feel like maybe he had a connection to someone that worked at Tesla and he knew stuff through secondhand knowledge or something. And I don't know. It's hard to know, but he did seem to know some real details that even some of the people we follow in our circle in the Twitterverse don't seem to know about Tesla's full self-driving. So it was interesting.
Yeah, I do wish there were more kind of sources of inside information like that. It's you kind of only get it from Elon right now, and his tweets are so hard to read. He's always like, oh yeah, it'll be released Friday or next Friday, or like it's always unclear which Friday he's talking about. Like it seems like the last couple tweets he's had, you have to kind of discern, okay, so does that mean like version 10.0 is going to be released this Friday or next, and then what follows after that? Like you got to kind of like piece it together. So
yeah, you do. Yeah. So yeah, it's crazy. And I think there's a couple things like the guy said. He was saying like that full self-driving level 5 isn't going to be ready for years with the current hardware. So he was saying things that like some of us have been suspecting, but the fact that, and so I was a little down, I was a little down about that. Like, oh, maybe the people that are, are right about the cameras needing to be rearranged and all that. But then to find out that the guy's Twitter was deleted, supposedly because he, was pretending to be someone he wasn't. And, makes me realize like anything he said could have been kind of a lie, or not a lie intentionally, but just like his own like made up mind of who knows. He could have been some crazy person that just knows a lot about technical autopilot stuff, rambling off about stuff. We just don't know, but you can't take what he said as truth, really. So you just have to reset my brain from everything that guy said and kind of go back to, listening more to Elon and what he's saying and Andre, and try to read between the lines with those guys.
Yeah, it's hard to trust these outside sources. I mean, I remember even Leo Kogwan, the shareholder, there were a lot of people questioning whether he was legit or not. But
Yeah.
Martin Viecha did confirm that, yeah, that Twitter handle that's been going around is in fact
He
the
does
kind
own
of real.
Tesla.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a
Crazy.
very interesting guy, but yeah, people were skeptical of him because he says some things that appear a little kind of off the wall. But I think
Yeah.
that's just kind of who he is.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, I think next week we were thinking about kind of showcasing, we'll have the deliveries presumably by then. We were thinking about what we were going to show your model a little bit for Tesla and what we kind of anticipate early for earnings. Is that what you're thinking, Matt?
Yeah, so I've been doing financial modeling on Tesla for a long time now. I've been giving the quarterly earnings estimates for quite some time. So we thought next week we'll have the actual delivery numbers in hand, like you just said, Emmett, and so we can open up the model and I'll give my kind of walkthrough of what I'm estimating for Tesla's margins and earnings per share, and maybe we can even play around with some of the sensitivities around there and kind of the things that I'm looking at. So we can give maybe a kind of early sneak peek at a potential Q3 results for Tesla. So I think that would be very interesting to dive into that earlier rather than later. So yeah, I'm excited about that. And yeah, people have questions, you can ask them on when we go through that, and hopefully it'll be helpful in kind of establishing some maybe a range of likely outcomes for Tesla's earnings.
Yeah, yeah. Someone on the Twitter on the comments here said that that hacker Armin the hacker Twill was a 14-year-old kid uncovered by Tesla Facts recently on a tweet. So that person that seemed to know everything about the Tesla Autopilot was a 14-year-old kid. so you can't believe
Or you
anything
could,
that fooled us all.
no, or you could just interpret that in the worst possible way, the way a lot of journalists do. Like I'm sure Russ Mitchell would see that and say, "Oh, Tesla's employing 14-year-old child labor to support its dangerous autopilot hardware."
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, everyone put your questions in. I know some people have asked questions on Twitter already. We'll get to and all this. And next week also, we think we're gonna talk about kind of a new stock our fund has been investing in since the summer, and we've been getting more conviction on, and we're kind of preparing to release a little miniature like research piece on it. And so we'll think about talking about that next week a little bit too. But